2-minute movement break. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Michelle. I'm a TC Fit trainer. If you want to spotlight me so you can't see everyone else, that's fine. Otherwise, just know that I'm going to try to talk through and do these movements big enough that you can see them today. And we're going to start with just shoulder rolls. So I'm rolling the shoulders forward. Hopefully that feels pain-free because we tend to roll our shoulders forward all day long. And now we want to reverse that motion, shoulders up, down, and back. So nice and smooth here. It's okay to feel a little popping and cracking as we loosen up those joints, but no pain. So adjust any of the movements today to work best for you. Go ahead and drop those shoulders down, and we're taking this into spinal flexion or a spinal roll forward. So I start with my chin, slowly tilting forward, then I'm moving between my shoulder blades, rolling that spine down, moving into that thoracic spine, that mid-back. I'm letting my arms hang towards the floor. Today, this movement's coming on my in my kitchen, so you don't need a lot of space. Once you reach that bottom point and your head is hanging, think about that starting point at your tailbone, at the lowest part of your spine, and we're rolling up one little vertebrae at a time. So through that lumbar spine, through the mid-back, the thoracic spine, up to the shoulders, and through the neck, bring those shoulders down and back. Perfect. Opening up through our goalpost. So hands are up. You don't have to be at exactly 90 degrees. You may want to drop those elbows a little bit, and we're squeezing the shoulder blades back. So shoulder blades squeeze, engaging those rhomboid muscles between the shoulder blades, feeling that stretch across the chest. Let's bring those elbows or hands in together, squeeze, and then open, we squeeze back. So we squeeze forward, and then we squeeze back. Good. 2 more here. Getting movement between those shoulder blades, opening up through the chest. Go ahead and drop those hands down, torso rotation. So I'm going to take my hand to the opposite knee and turn, looking over that shoulder. So rotating through the spine, again, only to your comfort level. Take that inhale, and with the next exhale, we rotate all the way through to the other side. Inhale, exhale here, all the way through. If you're just joining us, we're coming up on the end of our 2-minute movement break. All the way through, one more time to the other side. And back to center. Let's take a quick awareness. So start with both feet on the floor. Oh, that makes us actually think about where our feet are today. That's going to be an important thing we talk about with posture. Feet are on the floor, wiggle those toes, bring that awareness up to the abdominal region, gentle engagement. So like you're tightening your belt 1 notch, still able to breathe comfortably. Shoulder blades are down and back. And tuck that chin just a little bit. Get those ears aligned over the shoulders. I'm not asking you to keep that double chin all day long. I just want you to bring some awareness to that forward neck movement and posture, that ability to move the head forward and that ability to tuck the chin and have that string kind of pulling from the top of your head for a nice tall spine. Take that inhale and let it relax. Thank you for moving with me. I'm going to hand this over to our leaders, Matt Arbeiter and Andrea Meyer, our physical therapists. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Michelle. And Michelle, you actually hit on probably the most important aspect of working from home, and that is finding opportunities to move throughout your day. More important than fancy chairs, more important than fancy workstations and tables that move up and down, et cetera. The tissues, the discs that sit between our vertebrae and the joint surfaces throughout our spine and actually throughout our body only receive nutrition through movement. So in short, finding opportunities to move and change positions is probably most important. So we like, for those of you who've dialed into these Q&A sessions, we like to keep an open forum. These are meant to be for you to ask questions. Likely if you have a question, somebody else does. So please pop in and either turn your mic and your video on, or you can just put it in the chat box. I think Michelle's going to be managing that for us, and I'll try to keep an eye on it as well. Andrea, what do you think both Andrea and I are both ergonomists and clinical physical therapists. And I think both of us have seen the negative effects of working from home. And Andrea, have you seen in your clinic any particular injuries, static and dynamic injuries from people working from home?
For sure. And it's definitely more neck, shoulder issues related and movement related. So people kind of get dialed into work and kind of forget that they should get up and move around. I even had somebody, he's working from his kitchen and he showed me, from a virtual visit, he can just turn around and get his snacks right behind him. He doesn't even have to get up to get his snacks. So people are a little bit more likely to sit still, I think, at home, unfortunately.
So in short, we should be drinking that, whatever the recommendation is from the nutritionist, that ungodly like 6 gallons of water or something. So you have to get up and fill your water bottle, but also go to the bathroom. And that's creating movement throughout the day. We'll take what we can get, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm seeing that in my clinic as well. A lot of people coming in with neck, upper back, a little bit of elbow too. I think that people start chasing their mice away, and we'll talk about some ergonomic principles here today and how to set up your workstation at home. But elbow and mostly upper extremity things, and some low backs as well, but not quite as many. But again, the most important thing is finding opportunities to move. I think the hardest thing when you're working from home is getting your keyboard into the correct spot. We typically are going to be working, even if you have a fixed desk and office at your house, you're typically going to be working off of a dining room or kitchen table. And those are going to be about 28 or 30 inches in height. I'm a normal size individual, about 5'11". And when I sit up at a chair properly, that height of that is too high for me. Where we want that keyboard is at or just below your elbow height when everything else is correct. Most of the time, that 28 to 30 inches is a little too high. What that promotes is a little bit of reaching through your arm, and also creates an awkward posture that those static positions can cause some problems as well. Andrea, anything to add there?
I got a question by email yesterday. Someone wanted to find the perfect mouse because they were associating their neck and arm pain with using their mouse. So they thought it was the mouse's problem. Really said, your mouse itself is probably fine. Here's some options for mouses, but really you've got to get that height and reach under control first, and you might realize that that's all it takes. So that height and reach position, I think, is absolutely key.
Exactly. So we'll try to connect and send out to people, and feel free to email me at my General Mills account or my TC Fit account. And if you have special questions, we'll try to hook up everybody with some OPLs of how you should be sitting and standing at home as you work from home. And there's some tools that you can use. In short, where we should be when you're sitting, in a perfect world, we want your feet flat on the ground. Your hips should be open, so the angle between your torso and your legs here should be about, I like opening people to about 100 degrees. I know a lot of ergonomic, if you Google proper office ergonomics, it'll say 90. I like opening them about 100. Andrea, how do you feel about that?
I don't get out of measurement, so I'm 10 degrees plus or minus. So yeah.
I want things perfect, so I do get out. No, I don't. But ultimately, you want your hips just above your knees. But your feet should always be flat on the floor. So those of us who are of smaller stature, mostly women, if you're working at that 28 to 30 inch height, you're gonna have to. If you can't get the keyboard into the right spot, you're gonna have to bring yourself up to get to that keyboard. So what I usually tell people, even if they have an office chair at home, even maximizing the height of that office chair isn't always enough. So I have them sit on maybe some towels to bring themselves up to get that keyboard, again, at or just below that elbow height. What happens then is your feet will dangle, okay? So if you don't have the footrest available, you can also take like a couch cushion or some blankets or towels to set up to create a higher surface for your feet to sit on. Your body will search for stability. So if you're sitting at a computer for an hour, you're going to gently, if your feet are dangling, you're going to end up perching on the edge of that chair to get that stability. Anytime that the workstation doesn't fit you and you're fitting yourself to the workstation, that violates ergonomic principles. The job of an ergonomist is to fit the workstation to you. Okay, so make sure that you're thinking about some of those things. Also, I think I see people still for 8 to 10 hours a day working off of a laptop. Andrea, are you seeing that as well? Or are people moving away from that a little bit?
Both. So they move away from it once we have that discussion.
Right. And you can use a laptop as your go-to, but I think that it's best to use an external mouse and keyboard. And what you can do is raise that laptop. If you're using that laptop as your monitor, raise that laptop onto a couple reams of paper perhaps, or maybe there are laptop stands out there and available. 3M makes a great one that's a very good value. It's like $20, I think, on Amazon. Note also that everybody's working from home, so a lot of these things are back ordered with these supply chains. So sometimes it's not easy. You're not going to get that in 1 or 2 days like we're typically used to with Amazon. But there's a few other ones, and if anybody has specific questions, again, reach out to me. But that'll bring that keyboard, that monitor up to that. You want that monitor, the top toolbar at or just below eye height. Those of us who I just turned 50 this summer, and I am wearing these. And when I wear them, like the grandpa glasses down on my nose, then ultimately I probably don't need that toolbar at or just below my eye height, because what I don't want to do is be craning my neck out to see that monitor and look through my glasses. So I either have to move my glasses up, or I'm going to have to lower that monitor. That also goes for people who use bifocals. Andrea, anything else that you see, questions that you get from your patients? I have a list of questions, of typical questions, but is there anything that you're hearing from your patients right now of issues or equipment questions that they have as they work from home?
Yeah, the main thing is height and reach. And where I work, people they don't know how long they're going to be working from home, because as soon as the state allows, they will be going back to work. Whereas I think you guys at General Mills have a little bit longer time span kind of planning work from home. So it's a little bit easier to set up your desks. I know my husband, he works at General Mills. He ended up buying a crank arm stand-up adjustable desk so he can get that position right. So if you know you're going to be working from home for a while, it's worth a little bit of investment to get that position right. My folks are they're hesitant to put money into it because they don't think they're going to be at home very long.
I get it. So what are your thoughts on, I get this question a lot, on like sitting on a stability ball or an exercise ball as you work from home?
It's great for short periods of time. It shouldn't be your main desk or your main chair.
Right. Is that going to, you think
question we get too is the people that are standing, and my husband asked me this, like, should I have a specific mat that I'm standing on? He was standing barefoot. I'm like, okay, you at least need to wear shoes if you're going to be standing at your desk for a while. I don't know if you're getting that question much, or if you have very many people that are able to get into a standing position.
Yeah, and I think how you can do that for those of us, some people are purchasing these sit-stand options. I think the big issue with those, you're bringing up a great topic, that is that most sit-stands available, not all, most, make excellent standing options, but they don't make great sitting options simply because of the topic we talked about earlier, that keyboard tray does not come below the height of the place that it's sitting. So in short, your keyboard tray, where your keyboard sits, is going to still be too high if your surface is too high. There are some options out there where that keyboard tray drops below the height of the desk, of that fixed desk, and those are the ones I typically recommend, simply because then we can get people into a better position with their arms and with their upper back, so they're not getting that slouch reachy posture because things are too high. But another option for those working at home is you can get creative with reams of paper or textbooks and work at like a kitchen island. Those are typically, I think, about 48 inches, around there. For those of us of shorter stature, that might be enough, a perfect height for us. Again, getting that keyboard at or just below elbow height. Or if you're a little taller than that, getting creative with a laptop stand or reams of paper to bring an external keyboard and a laptop a little higher. Those are options, simple things that you can use at home to get yourself in a better standing position. So when it comes to standing, I do think the anti-fatigue mats are great. You can get those relatively inexpensive. Remember that they do become a trip hazard. I usually recommend the ones that have more beveled edges. And also the problem with those too, if they're good, they're pretty heavy. They're pretty heavy duty. it's hard. You have to move that out of the way then when you want to sit at your desk. And I do think it's unrealistic that you're going to stand all day. Andrew, do you have people that ask, I'm going to stand all day? I said, probably not.
No, I definitely don't want to stand it still all day either. A recommendation that I've seen before is this 30-minute rule where you sit for 20 minutes, stand for 8 minutes, and move for 2 minutes out of every 30 minutes. So you really do want that variety. You don't want hours of any one thing all at once.
Yeah, and those are hard and fast rules. It's a general guideline. I guess listen to your body. And what I typically will tell people is if you've been sitting in one spot and you have to grab your shoulder, or you grab your back thinking, oh my gosh, I have to stand up, you've probably already waited too long. So if you can decide what that number is it 20 minutes, is it 40 minutes, and try to get up and move before that occurs, that's going to be helpful. Again, you're bringing in nutrition to those tissues. We weren't meant to sit in one spot for that long, especially if that one spot doesn't have an ideal setup. Even with an ideal setup where it's perfectly ergonomically and posturally sound, I would say that I wouldn't want you sitting there for an indefinite amount of time, maybe 40, 45 minutes most. And those breaks don't have to be, I got to go around, a walk around the lake. It can be simple, a quick micro ergo break. And I think that if you were lucky enough to see Michelle's little break here, it's simple as that, 1 or 2 minutes of movement, just some shoulder blade squeezes and some back bends and things like that, just to get the tissues moving. Andrea, I'm going to go backtrack to this stability ball. And I don't know what your thoughts are on this. What I tell people, a lot of people say, well, I'm going to burn calories when I'm sitting on that thing, so I'm going to lose weight. So I'm exercising as I'm sitting at my desk, and also, I'm going to be strengthening my core. I think we know that's not happening. I think the movement, and it's kind of fun, you might be getting just as much benefit, the movement of standing up out of that chair to grab that stability ball and come back and then switch it back out after 5 or 10 minutes. But again, if that helps you sit and you like that stability ball, I think it's awesome too, for maybe 10, maybe 15 minutes an hour. However, I think it's unrealistic to use that as a replacement for a good chair, a good office chair, or even a good regular dining room chair for that matter.
And to change course again on you then, I think a lot of people are putting their office in their home wherever they can find a spot, and lighting can be an issue, and glare. So do you want to address kind of ideals for that lighting fit and eye strain?
I'll let you take that, Andrea. You're doing such a good job.
I don't know the answer, Matt.
Oh, you don't? So typically you do too, but I'll take it. So here's what I would say. Typically you still, if there's a natural light source coming in, you probably want it, not like I'm set up here. You don't want it behind you. You maybe want it perpendicular if you're lucky enough to be able to set up that way. What we probably wouldn't want is a big window right behind whatever monitor you're looking at. That's nice if you have a nice view of a lake or something like that. I know some people are working from home at a cabin or something. I'm not that lucky, but again, remember that your pupils dilate and constrict based on how much light they need to let into focus. And so that your body and your brain knows it has to focus on the screen, but your eyes are trying to accommodate that external light source. It has the potential to create eye strain with time. So if you do have to have your screen set up with the light source, that natural light source behind you, hang on 1 second, the mailman's here, and my dog might bark. Ellie? So I just see him walking past. Sorry, everybody. But ultimately, use your blinds if you have those. And there's nothing wrong with opening those windows once in a while, but an exaggerated example would be if you have your iPad or like a laptop outside in a sunny day after it snows, you just can't quite focus on that. That's what's happening over that 8-hour day. If you set up, it can just create some eye strain, and use those blinds if you have to set up that way. Ideally, you want that light source coming from perpendicular from the side to your monitor. So this is for everybody. Andrea and I are talking, and we can keep talking for 3 or 4 hours about this probably. But if you guys have any questions, just type it in the chat box. Everybody's dutifully listening here. It's very un-General Mills-like. I usually get more questions. So let's step up and ask some good questions. Oh, here's one right here. What about I have a question here, Andrea. I'll let you take it, and I'll pipe in too, of course, because I have a hard time not talking. What about myofascial release and massage? What do you think about that as a little micro ergo break, perhaps?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. If you've got a foam roller, hop on the ground for 2 minutes and roll through, or grab that lacrosse ball. Yeah, I think that's a great micro break, or not a micro break, and over lunch for half an hour.
Or perhaps a loving housemate that might rub my shoulders.
Right, right. And I think the key to that is always getting ahead of the pain. If you wait until something is miserable where you can't concentrate because it's so tight, it's almost too late at that point. So you do want to try to get ahead of things with that massage and with that movement as much as you can, I think.
Yeah, so we do actually have, we posted on the TC Fit YouTube some award-winning self-release techniques. Actually, they're not award-winning, and they haven't been viewed that many times on our YouTube channel. It's me doing it, but there are some techniques that you can use both with a lacrosse ball. I think we have some foam roller things in there as well, and then also there's devices you can get very inexpensive, like a Theracane, that allow, it's kind of like a shepherd's hook that you can get in and do some self-release on your upper back and your glutes and things like that. But Jennifer, I think that's a great way to give yourself a little bit of a micro ergo break, stand up and move, and just moving on a lacrosse ball or a foam roller, or getting a Theracane or something. And they do have other devices. I think the popular things, you see them on some of these sports teams on the sideline, get these Theraguns, these little vibrating guns that have like a little tennis ball or racquetball thing on the end of them. Those can be very beneficial as well. I don't have one, but I've used them many times, and I think that's a great tool as well. I think there are some cheaper ones out there. I think the Hypervolt and the Theragun, I think, are the two. Those like $300, but there are other options too. You know, that's, again, if you have somebody that's willing to kind of press that on your body, or you can do it yourself, it's a great option.
I had just in the last week buy an Amazon massager with a heater that it kind of wraps around your neck, and then you can kind of hold it in front of you and then change the position of it a little bit. And they're loving those. Again, I don't have one, but it was $25. So there are a lot of options out there.
Well, and even if it doesn't work, that's a very small investment, right? Another question that I get once in a while too is how should the dual monitors be set up? I know some people are using like a regular monitor plus their laptop. Some people are lucky enough to have dual monitors. Andrea, what would you recommend for those?
You know, my husband's using 3. So that's why like an adjustable sit to stand didn't work. So he got the full on big desk because he has 2 monitors and his laptop all set up. It's just, you've got to center. If you're using one primarily, you're centering that one. If you're 50-50, you're kind of split between the two. I think it's a little bit tricky if you're that 75% on one, 25% on the other. I think it's a little bit tricky as to figure out where to go with it. But I think it's important to remember, if you're always looking one way, the neck starts to get a little bit stiff that way. So if you tend to go to one monitor, switch it up here and there if you've got more than one.
Yeah, it's typically what I tell people. If you're 50-50 truly, you want that seam between those monitors right on the space bar between G and H on your space on your keyboard. But again, you make a great point. If you're staring off to that right side all the time, maybe you move that primary using that one like a 70-30 or a 80-20, maybe that whatever monitor. And I would encourage people to use not their laptop monitor, but the fixed monitor, just because typically the resolution and the clarity are a little bit better on those monitors versus your laptop. And then have the laptop off to the side. All the cool kids are using 2 monitors. I only use one. That might say something about me. So we have another comment over here as well. Lindsay said she has the Flyby Theragun on Amazon. I guess it's only $100. So there you go. You get a good endorsement for the Flyby Theragun from Lindsay. So yeah, I think anytime you can give those tissues some input, movement, or somebody doing a trigger point release, or you doing a self release, is going to be very, very beneficial and helpful. So
Matt, question for you. When it comes to stretching and myofascial release, is there ever too much?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can press too hard. I think the key is that when you are using one of these tools, you want to stay off of bony prominences. I see people thinking that that's a knot, like up in their back. They're pressing on like a anatomical area of the spine of their scap, and it's actually a bone, or their first rib that's right here. And that definitely, you're going to bruise a bone, and that's going to become more painful. I think overstretching, maybe, but I just think in our society, for the most part, if people are doing it correctly, and that is low load, entering the stretch range very slowly, exiting slowly, that I feel like you're probably not going to do too much damage unless there's something else going on within the joint itself. Andrea, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, or unless the muscle's really hot. Like if you let it get so irritated that if you stretch it, sometimes it'll kind of overreact and try to pull you back a little bit, and you've just got to be real gentle with those.
Right. Right. So, if it feels good, do it. And obviously stretch discomfort and exercise discomfort is sometimes expected, but if anything hurts, I give some profound medical advice. If it hurts, don't do it. Some people need to hear that though. Okay. We have another question here, and I think we talked about this, but let's address it again. Chad asked about, what about monitor height? What I typically tell people, Chad, is you want the top toolbar at or just below your eye height. Typically about arm's length away. At the end of the day, you can change fonts, and depending on what kind of documents you're reading, at the end of the day, you want to be able to keep those ears over the shoulder and not manipulate your body to see that. So the distance is about approximately arm's length, give or take. If you are wearing reading assistants, bifocals, or grandpa glasses down on the edge of your nose like this, you don't want to be seeing the monitor like this. So then you would probably, that top toolbar height at or just below your eye height would be a little lower than that. So you just have to kind of play around with it to find where you can sit with a good position of posture and still see what you need to see to do your job.
Matt, I'm going to share our YouTube playlist so some of these can be reviewed. Do you have any thoughts for devices like phones or iPads? Do we need to hold those up in front of our face as well?
I think that anytime, it just really is switching. We're doing way too much texting when you're looking down like this all the time. I think it's unrealistic to lift it up and do this too. Change positions frequently if you can. If you are using an iPad and you're using it frequently for work, you maybe want to lift it up. There are stands that you can use for that as well. Ultimately, these portable devices are causing some problems with upper back and neck, let's just face it. Why a laptop violates all ergonomic principles is because the keyboard and the monitor are attached. Well, the same thing happens with an iPad or a phone. You can't get everything correct all the time. So that's where you minimize the use and you try to switch hands. If you're using one hand too much or the other, try to minimize and spread out the stress. Andrea, any comments on those?
I always think about kids with this stuff too, and especially now with kids doing school from home. If you all have kids, you want to think about the ergonomics with your kids working on devices too, and combining the laptop use plus the portable device use, and do what you can to kind of get the heights better for the kids as well.
Right. So we're winding down our time, guys. If you have any questions, again, if somebody has something specific, they can pop it up here right now in the next couple of minutes, because we're trying to abide by our guidelines of keeping everybody moving along with their meetings throughout the day, because we're coming up on 12:28. So if anybody has any questions, and if after this you have time to digest and you have other questions or forgot about what we talked about, please don't hesitate to reach out to anybody. I'm on General Mills. Email. You can just email the fitness center if you forget my name, Matt Arbeiter. If you have a specific question for Andrea, I'm happy to get her a question as well.